Good morning. Happy Monday. Thanks so much for joining us here for Lunch and Legislature. Hope everybody's recovering from their Super Bowl Sunday. Ian, did you stay up? I know you get up early. Did you stay up and watch the Super Bowl?
I did not. I stayed up, but I was doing other stuff. I was not watching the Super Bowl. But go sports.
Go sports. Well, it was an interesting night to start off what will undoubtedly be another interesting week, both in Nebraska, in the world, and Nebraska politics. So we're going to jump right in with today's episode of Lunch and Legislature. You have a bunch of AI-related stuff in banking and commerce that you have been itching to talk about. So I'm going to open up the floor for you.
Sounds good. So today, Banking and Commerce has a hearing where they're going to hear about some of the bills. There's three that we're going to talk about today. LB 1185, which is basically going to change how minors can interact with artificial intelligence, specifically like chatbots will have to tell the minor at the beginning of the conversation, I am an AI. And then every 3 hours after that, it will remind the user that it's an AI. Now, I think this should be applied to everybody, not just for minors. I think this would be a great idea to remind everybody that they are talking with an AI. I also hope that it would remind people that, hey, it can hallucinate. We had some hallucinations sent into us. Ours hallucinates sometimes, so it's just one of those things where it's good to remember. The other thing about this one, which I don't know how much you follow internet news, Darsha, but it would not allow AI, specifically chatbots, to be romantic or explicit. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to work with Elon Musk's AI over on X, but that seems to be a shot fired at that.
Yeah, it's interesting. You hear, like, when you get up in the morning, you watch the news, you hear these stories about people getting into, like, romantic relationships with their AI. We've heard of people like using ChatGPT as a therapist, which licensed professional therapists have come out and said that is not
don't do it
an accurate, adequate replacement. If you need mental health help, you should not be using ChatGPT. But especially for kids, I graduated college in 2018, and I feel like those were like the last few years because ChatGPT was 2022, 2023. That ChatGPT kind of hit the mainstream, I guess.
I graduated in 24, but I was like already working, so I was like taking online classes, but I never used ChatGPT.
No.
I feel like that came out like right at the end. Like, I mean, it was being used, but it like became really popular right around my last semester in college. So I think that's probably where that is. And to add to that mental health aspect, by the way, this would give parents access to their kids' ChatGPT, etc., AI models, whatever it is. And the AI model would also have to report to the parents and the government if the minor or whoever it was said they were thinking of self-harm or something along those lines.
Wow. It's interesting because I don't know if you caught the news last week about Roblox kind of as a platform that is being used for child predators to kind of target and move the communication then out of Roblox. And when you just start talking about technology, I'm almost 31 and I struggle with using technology, and I cannot imagine being 8, 9, 10, 12, and having access to what they have now. I don't know about you, I feel overloaded just with what we have now. And I am an adult with a fully functioning most of the time fully functioning developed brain, and it is too much for me.
I'm not even going to pretend that I'm close to fully functioning, so we can talk about that. But yeah, definitely overwhelming to have all this technology, and especially AI, because I've noticed a lot of people don't quite understand what it is. So a lot of people go to it for relationship advice, and I've heard stories of people, I've read articles about people who've gotten divorced because of relationship advice from ChatGPT. And it's like, you can't do that. One of the things, full disclosure, Gray has some AI tools for us to use. And one of the things that I like to use it for is I will run my scripts through it, I'll run my article through it, and I will go, find out what political bias I have. Find out, where I lean, and if I am leaning, tell me how to not lean. I love it. I do it almost every morning. I talk with it, and because I specifically I don't want to take a side. It's not my job to take a side.
Correct.
And so I specifically make sure that I'm as neutral as can be. And
Ugh.
sometimes I have to explain because it wants to please you. I have to tell it, hey, I don't want you to just agree with me. I want you to actually have a critical argument with me about should this detail be included in a script. So, like, if we were to go back to former Senator of Nebraska, Ben Sasse, saying he had cancer. I was, putting in some stuff about his political career there, and the AI was going, Ian, you're going too far, don't do that. And I went, well, I like politics. This is kind of what I know. This is kind of my area. And we were going back and forth about what to include, what not to include. And it was just a very interesting conversation. And I think I ended up sending that to our VP of AI, saying I should not have to argue this hard with it to get it to actually, disagree with me and give me valid advice. I think that was the moral of that conversation.
When we talk about like using AI, I think the thing that scares a lot of people is this is a thing that you have to put guardrails on. So like when we're using our approved AI sources that Gray Media provides, these are things that we have been trained to put guardrails on. Like you said, do not just agree with me. But I can't imagine, and then you're using discernment, right? Okay, this makes sense. This doesn't make sense. If you use ChatGPT, I'm awake, I promise, it's Monday. At the bottom, it says, ChatGPT can make mistakes. So you need to double check. And I think as adults, we know that. Do we always do it? I hope that we do, and that becomes a common thing. But for a 11-year-old, a 12-year-old, an 8-year-old that might not exercise that same level of judgment and discernment, I mean, that could just go off the rails, I think.
I will not go into details to protect viewer privacy, but we got an email, I'll say within the last month, and that person was trying to correct us on something that we had said, and they had just used Google's Gemini and just Googled, did X happen? And then just copied the AI response and emailed it to us and included at the bottom of the email, this response may contain mistakes. And I use that as a learning opportunity to say, hey, this is an AI. It's not giving you the full story. Check your sources. You can't just trust everything Google says to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, I believe, 1083, is that what it is? That's a store bill.
Yes, 1083. That one
hearing is actually today, and I am planning on being at that.
But all these are today in the banking committee. This one really it's makes AI companies release a mandatory public safety report where they talk about what they've done to ensure public safety. It has a lot of the similar things to 1185. But the other thing this does is it requires companies to report incidents to the Attorney General, and it gives the Attorney General teeth to actually go after these companies.
Wow. Well, other kind of related ones that are coming out of banking and commerce, is there anything that goes with 1185 that you're just really interested in?
Well, there's 1119. Do you know what that one is?
I don't.
Okay, that's okay. I didn't realize it until this morning, but we are bringing back the Age-Appropriate Online Design Code Act of 2025. We're bringing it into 2026, and boy, does this strengthen it. So it basically it redefines all these terms that they used to make them more broad, which makes it easier for them to go after companies that they think are violating them, but at the same time doesn't tell companies where that line is anymore. And so I thought that was interesting, because originally it was targeted at data brokers, but not so much anymore. It's actually targeted at social media companies and data brokers. This new version is, of course. It also targets dark patterns. And Darsha, I know that you are 31. I am 27, I think. 27, 28, somewhere in there. I don't remember, but 27 now that I did the math. But basically this expands blackout hours. So there are blackout hours where minors cannot use their devices between 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. This would add school day weekdays from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. to that blackout for social media.
Well, which makes sense if you think about the cell phone bill that was passed. I believe that was last year that Governor Pillen championed, which was we don't need to have phones in classrooms. Well, if you don't have your phone, you probably don't need to be on social media. I think that's
I agree with that.
probably
What I would
the understanding
say, though,
there.
controversial take. I think that we should be, and this is the strategy my parents had, was we should be teaching kids how to use the technology rather than just getting rid of it and being afraid of it. But that's what I was taught. That was what I was brought up with, was, learn how to use your phone.
Correct.
And so I kind of,
and use it
always
correctly
would
and
try
know
to
the
use it as a calculator.
consequences. Yeah.
And I would definitely, there's times when I learned the consequences. I really enjoyed playing Star Wars Battlefront 2 in the middle of my calculus class because I did not understand derivatives. And to this day, I have a degree that's partially in math and I do not understand derivatives. But those two things may or may not be related.
I barely passed high school algebra. I majored in history, so I am not the person to ask math questions to. You can tell I struggle with just bill numbers. So numbers to me are just foreign.
It's a different language.
It really is. Well, that is what's coming up this week. So we'll be there to kind of bring you the results of what comes out of these public hearings. Again, these hearings, Nebraska is so interesting. This is the opportunity that people have to come actually sit face to face with their lawmakers and either be for, be against. You can also testify as neutral. We don't see that as much, but this is your opportunity. And I feel like there are so many other places. I mean, I worked in South Dakota. That wasn't really a thing that you got to do.
No,
and it's amazing to see.
It's much more open here.
So that's this week in the legislature. I'm going to take you back to last week because last Thursday was a very interesting day in the Nebraska legislature.
Absolutely, it was. Tell us about it.
Raybould's minimum wage bill. That was introduced last January. It carried over into this year. That's LB 258. And what LB 258 does is take the minimum wage for 14 to 16-year-old workers down to $13.50 an hour from $15 an hour. And it caps their increase at 1.5% per year, which doesn't start till 2030. And then it takes the minimum wage increase for everyone across the board that is not 14 to 16, and it raises it 1.75% per year. A big difference from IM 433 in 2022, which Nebraska voters passed at almost 60%, which brought the minimum wage to what it is now and made those yearly increases based on, I believe it's the consumer price index. It was an inflationary increase to even attempt
they were using
to
inflation
keep pace
numbers
with inflation.
And what was interesting about that is the CPI, going into math, of course, as we like to do on this show today, they shoot for about 2% of inflation every year. If it's under 2%, they're happy. And so putting this under 2%, I just find that interesting that that's what they're going to target, is that 1.75, because it's close to 2. But these past few years, we've definitely seen over 2%. And so I find it fascinating that that's the guardrail they wanted to put on it.
And one of the arguments we heard, I believe it was John Kavanaugh of Omaha, said cost of living is already high for a lot of people. We're talking about, an affordability crisis was kind of the phrase that we heard a lot. And now you're effectively taking money out of Nebraskans' pockets. And the argument on the flip side, which makes sense, I'm not a businessman, but I also get it, is if you don't know how much it's going to increase every year and this is kind of a fluid number, that would be pretty difficult, I imagine, to plan, because I'm sure a lot of business owners are planning not just 1 year in the future, but 2 years, 3 years. So in some sort of attempt to keep that relatively stagnant so they can plan, I think it was Jane Raybould or it was Senator Anderson who said this kind of minimum wage bill in general is a tax on small businesses, which I thought was an interesting way to put that.
I am friends with a small business owner. I will not shout him out on this show, but I will, he has talked about how these bills like this hurt his industry, his business, because he only has 6 or 7 employees, and he really depends on the market. And so it really depends on, well, how much money did he make that month? Can he afford to pay this increased cost that people see?
It was interesting, too, because IM 433, right, there was this long process to get this on the ballot, this minimum wage increase on the ballot.
Absolutely.
And if you were listening, if you went back and watched the coverage we did, or if you went back and listened to the floor debate, what you heard a lot of was the phrase that we are hearing a lot of this year as well, so much that it brought another ballot initiative: you are undoing the will of Nebraska voters. It was John Kavanaugh also said, most senators here didn't get elected by 60%. So he was kind of making the joke that, like, voters passed this pretty overwhelmingly, and it's interesting to pass that. Now, on the flip side, talking about the initiatives, Senator Tony Sorrentino, I believe he's of Elkhorn, was talking about the initiative process being flawed, and that being kind of, I think the word he used was like opinion poll. Using that. So when we really start getting into that nitty-gritty will of the people debate, that ate up most of the 2 hours that they had left for debate on Thursday, and ultimately ended up passing 33-16.
Which is we should note that's the bare minimum they needed to pass this without, of course, having to overcome the filibuster. So they did overcome the filibuster, basically, is what that is. That's why you had those 33 votes there.
And the original vote was, do we send this back to committee? Is there a way that we can edit this? Can we change it? Can we do something to amend it to make it more palatable for the floor? And they passed it just 33-16, bare minimum number of votes that they needed. That bill
I believe this vote was not along
is,
party lines, if I remember right.
It's pretty close. I believe
it's close, but not all the way there.
There were a couple. Senator Dave Werdekemper actually voted against it. He's brought a bill earlier this year about taxes on cigars and stogies. That was one that drew some laughs in the legislature because Senator Dungan asked him what, and I can't even remember what it is now, a chelate or something like that, which is like a fancy type of tobacco.
I remember reading that bill and not knowing what that was, and just kind of going, "Oh, I don't know. I'm not gonna."
We got all the way to the end of that debate, and he was like, "Can I ask Senator Werdekemper what is this?" It was kind of humorous. So.
Yeah, and there's some words that when you don't know the definition, you don't want to Google it on the work computer, and that's one of them. I went, I don't know if I want that in my search history.
That the will of the people being undone, that line that we keep hearing, there is a ballot initiative that they're trying to get signatures to get on the ballot that would change the state's constitution to raise the minimum number of senators it would take to undo voter-approved measures like this. Haven't checked in with them for a while to see where they're at, but we are very quickly approaching election season, and it's going to be a busy year, so we hope you'll stick with us because I'm sure we will have a ton more content for you.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, I think we are hitting our time. We hope you're finishing up your lunch break as you're watching this, so we're going to get off here and get back to work so we have more content to bring you next week.
Absolutely. We'll see you next week. Have a great one.
Sounds good. Have a good one.